Hello. I'm doing a bit of a switch with you today and flipping the classroom. I thought it would be really helpful for you to have kind of the beginning of the research process as you were reading Romeo and Juliet so that you could keep some things in mind. Sort of like we do with pre-reading and we look at the questions before we read the story. So, as you are reading Romeo and Juliet, I would like for you to think about William Shakespeare as the author. Um, Now, you're not going to know a whole lot from the play about William Shakespeare, but some of the introductory materials will tell you about who he is as a person and some of his accomplishments. The picture here on this page, on the right side, actually the left and the right, it's a drawing of the old on the inside of the Globe Theater, and then a reproduction of the Globe Theater on the right. I want you to think about the time period in which Romeo and Juliet was written. It was the Elizabethan era, the Renaissance. Um, some things that are just interesting for you to know. When plays were done at that time, all actors were men. Even the females were played by men. And plays were one of the main sources of entertainment. Three classifications of Shakespearean drama are comedy, history, and tragedy. This is a tragedy as you read it. You might think about it as a history because it took place in a historical time for us, but it's not based on a true story, so it would be a tragedy. So before you begin your research, some of the questions that I need you to think about are: what are the steps of the research project? What is the difference between a research paper and a report, like a book report that you have done in the past? What is the difference between the subject and the topic? And how can you locate related topics easily? Some of the vocabulary that you're going to be needing. The paper, your research, and the resulting presentation has to be accurate. It has to be correct, free from errors. I want your research to be accurate, but also your writing. You will need to cite your sources, and we will use MLA, and we'll talk more about that, to investigate. That is to search carefully. Your sources will be the books, documents, possibly people that you will use, and we'll talk about required sources. And then synthesize. And this is going to be a really key term because you have not done a lot of synthesizing heretofore, but you combine separate elements into a whole. So why do you research? Well, when you look up movie reviews, when you gather information for a report, or you explore careers in computer animation or medicine or anything else, you're doing research to answer questions. No matter what your questions are, there are resources available to help you find the answers. You just have to know how to access them. So to review the actual assignment, you're going to identify what is required. So that's going to be topic possibilities, the number of sources required, the types of sources, the citation requirements, which again will be MLA format, and presentation requirements. So you're going to need to do an outline and some cards, but also your final presentation will be either in PowerPoint or Prezi. And then we'll talk about the length of presentation as well. What is a research presentation? We talked about the difference between research and a report. So in this, you're going to be offering an opinion or an argument of the writer and of you, the writer, and you're going to support it by research. Going to need to carefully choose concrete details that are interpreted and supported with well-written. You're going to need to write and explain their relevance to the argument. that you are presenting. So again, knowing the assignment, what does it have to be about? For this assignment, you're going to write a research presentation that discusses a topic that is related specifically to Romeo and Juliet. You're going to need at least 6 sources, including at least 3 print sources other than your textbook. Okay, now you have a subject. How do you figure out what part of your subject to research? I mean, there's so many possibilities. So you're going to need to focus. You're going to need to narrow your subject to a specific topic that's suitable for research. One of the things that you can pay attention to as you're going through is the conflict. We've talked about conflict before in stories. There's external and internal, and you'll definitely see many forms of conflict, examples of conflict, as you read through Romeo and Juliet. So I want you to take note of those and to just pay attention. Foreshadowing is just a hint of what is to come in the plot. So I want you to pay attention to how Shakespeare used foreshadowing in Romeo and Juliet. Okay, so you ask yourself, how do I focus? What do I know about my subject? What would I like to learn? And what will others learn from reading my paper? There's no reason to write a boring paper. So you want to begin with learning about the background first. This is a very general research. This is just learning about Shakespeare. It's learning about Elizabethan England. It's learning about the culture and times. You're not going to spend all of your time researching this. This is just the beginning of your research, and it just kind of helps you gain a general knowledge about the literature or about Shakespeare himself that will help you to come up with a topic. One of the most important steps in the process of writing a research paper is choosing an interesting or engaging topic. Again, why write a paper that's boring? If it's boring to you when you're writing it, you're not going to want to spend time on it. And so you will invest more time in the research and you'll enjoy the process more if you choose a topic that's appropriate for you. So, good luck. Keep these things in mind and revisit them as you are reading Romeo and Juliet, and we will go through these as a class and talk about some different topics that you may come up with and how to approach the research on them.